some of the questions that people have asked since we wrote the book. And the first and foremost that everybody asks is what inspired us to write the book. People for the longest time had been saying to Nancy and to me, oh, you guys, you should write a book, or you should have a television show. This is what people have said to us for the longest time. So during COVID, when things were a little bit slower and we were working at home virtually, we weren't working in the office, which is Robert's office. We don't pay, my husband Robert is there. We don't pay him rent, but we use his office. And in Rob's office, or going out to visit people in person, during that time, we took the time to write the book. And it had been in the head for a long time. So it's really based on, thanks, Klaus, it's based on Nancy's 35 years of clinical experience as a relationship psychologist and the years together that we had, 9 years by this time, as matchmakers. And what was really important to us was to create a book that would empower women in love and life. And so the book is filled with powerful, time-tested matchmaking anecdotes and secrets, helping women to meet, attract, and engage the man of their dreams. And by the way, we are selling the book outside. I think it's somewhere if you want to pick it up. And it's $10 that we're selling it for, but it goes to Kesha. So I want you all to know that if you buy the book, I'm not going to lunch afterwards. I'm going to, it's so. The next question that people ask is, so what's your best advice for somebody who's never been married, divorced, or widowed, just getting into the dating pool? And it may not apply to you, but you may have a friend in this position. So maybe you can say, I learned a little something, and this is what Barbara said today at the luncheon. So the first step with everybody is to determine if you're relationship ready. Have you made peace with your past relationships? Don't compare a new experience with the past. Begin to explore other ways of meeting people through friends, community organizations, which admittedly was difficult through the last couple of years. People weren't really going places, but now I think people are getting out and are doing things. And then, of course, people are using dating apps and sites, and then some people are actually using matchmakers like Nancy and me. So ask yourself, are you interested in the arts? Are you interested in political organizations? Do you like to travel? Do you like sports? Do you like golf? Do you like tennis? Because if you do those things, chances are that you might find somebody doing the same things you do. So do a little research on what's available and find your comfort zone and follow your passion. So some dating tips. First date rules. We tell our clients to prepare for the date physically, mentally, and emotionally. The goal is for our client to feel calm and confident and not nervous. Some of our clients like to do yoga, they like to meditate, and they like to work out prior to the date. Now this is the part Hetty's going to laugh, but I know she's going to laugh, but go wherever he chooses. So the choice, and she's saying that because I am not that person. I have to go through a whole story about what the restaurant is and what the menu is, and when we travel, she looks ahead of time to figure out there's something that I'll eat. So it's the truth. But I'm telling you an advice to somebody else, that go wherever the guy chooses. The choice of the restaurant is not all that important in the long run. And if you had a bad meal at the restaurant that he chooses, even if it's true, don't tell him that. And don't judge him if he takes you to what you don't think is such a great place on the first date. Because there are people that like to wait and maybe do it on a second or third date. So just go with the flow. But go with a positive attitude, and remember that he's probably as nervous as you are. So bring your smile and leave your judgments behind and be authentic and appreciative. Remember that your core values are different than your superficial desires. Most important are his values. Is he kind, empathetic, family-oriented, honorable? Don't focus on height, money, and status. It's a turnoff to him, and it's a setup for failure. Men, and I've seen this repeatedly, do not want to be seen as meal tickets, no matter how much money they have. So do not, tell this to your friends, do not ask a person if they own or they rent, what kind of a car the guy drives, or if he flies private. Huge turnoffs. And believe me, this comes up all the time. This is the truth. More tips. Remember that bad habits are not the same as a bad character. So for example, not paying for the valet or walking into the car are definitely bad habits, but they can be correctable. Someone who is not nice to the server at the restaurant and is rude, that's a red flag for bad behavior. Try to make a list of 5 good things that happen, even if it's not your guide. Just try to put yourself in that zone, that 5 good things that happen. Also, body language is also important. So look at the guy in the eye as if he's saying the most important thing that you've ever heard in your whole life, instead of leaning back and keeping your arms folded and he looks super bored, because believe me, he's going to get the message. Body language is key. This is a part that I think you should share with your friends too. Do not get intimate physically until you're emotionally ready. We always tell our clients that being physical too soon changes the dynamic of the relationship and should be accompanied with the comfort and ease of an emotional relationship. And remember, 2 drinks maximum, 1 is even better. Okay, now, this is one that we can all, everybody here can kind of relate to this. What's the best advice for parents of single children? So this, I think, is all ears now. I hate to say it, but the best advice is to butt out, which is easier said than done. And believe me, as the mom of 2 unmarried sons, and Nancy also has an unmarried son, it's very difficult. We know how hard that is because, you know, those of you that know me, people do say I'm a little bit of a helicopter and a micromanager, and so I just want to put it out there. It is hard. But even if you bite your tongue, don't do it. And it's critical not to pressure your kids about age, weight, religion. Don't impose your values on them. Be careful the way you ask the questions, or they might react differently towards you, against you. Try to be neutral, as hard as it is. Ask open-ended questions like, how are things going? Does he, she make you happy? Our kids really do want us to back off. And if we're not careful, we're going to push them away. It's really important for you to let your kids make their own choices. So often in our matchmaking service, we have parents of younger children and the clients. And the parents are the ones generally that are speaking for it. And a lot of times these are parents more of women, to be honest, but sometimes men. And they want to get involved in the whole thing. And they keep calling and they keep calling, and the kids really don't want them involved. So I can tell you with a full assurance that everybody's kids, including mine, are very aware of what we want for them and what we don't want for them. They're very, believe me, they know it. So we don't have to remind them every 5 minutes. This is their journey, and we have to allow them their space and their freedom. After all, what we really do want is for our kids to be happy and loving and in a stable relationship. So what is this book going to teach me? And is it only for women? So the book teaches the reader how to be more open, appreciative, and set boundaries. We suggest being a better listener and finding out about the other person. After all, you know everything there is to know about you, so it's a good idea to just sit back and try to listen to what the other person has to say. And don't write people off too quickly, which is very easy to do. You don't like the way he dressed, you don't like what he says, he doesn't have good table manner, whatever. It's easy to do. Everybody is nervous on the first date, so we try to tell people to go on at least 3 dates. And because many of our clients say they're not sure, they have no attraction on the first date, and then after 2 or 3 dates, they actually end up together. So while we did write the book for women, what's happened is that a number of men have read it, including Rob, I think, and learned a lot from the book. And when it's down deep, men really want the same thing in a relationship that women do. They want gratitude, they want authenticity, they want kindness, they want shared values, they want appreciation, they want a love of family, which are not gender-specific values. So the next part of my remarks is going to be talking about how the book can be applied to everyone, not just if you're single or if you're divorced or if you're widowed. So what I'm going to do is spend the next few minutes explaining how the lessons learned can be extended to everybody. And as I said earlier, you all know that I am not the one with a PhD. But through my friendship of almost 40 years with Nancy and the 9 years of being her partner and listening to her talk and listening to her advise other people, I feel like I have a quasi-doctorate in psychology through osmosis, so I'm going to wing her part of it, because if she were here, she would be giving this part. So the book talks a lot, if anybody's read it, it talks quite a bit about the animal kingdom and how men and women relate by nature. So we're going to start there. If Nancy were here, she would say that history shows that traditionally men are hunters. They're monofocused and women are gatherers, paying attention to many details. One thing we all know is that a good communication is key in any relationship, and understanding each other is what often goes awry. From our research and practice, it appears that men and women may differ in their assumptions, their needs, and how they think. Some ideas to consider. Why we as women sometimes just don't get what we want. So let's start with assumptions and attitude. Women often assume men don't care, because if they did care, they would give us what we need. How many times do we say to ourselves, I shouldn't have to ask, he should know? Women often think it's a sign of loving and caring for her male partner to figure out what they want or need. But here are the facts. Our brains are different. Estrogen causes women's brains to pay attention to details and what others need, while men are attending to producing results. Not that women aren't, but men are mono-focused. So often women are offended, creating a negative attitude and making assumptions that aren't necessarily accurate. And we all know that that can spiral into a pattern of poor communication and feeling unfulfilled in the relationship. So how do men think? Well, let's start with testosterone. It causes a man's brain to be organized differently than a woman's brain. Men receive and process information differently. Here, timing is everything. When you ask your significant other for something you want or need, timing is as important. Is he driving? Just getting home from work or leaving? Waiting for something? If he is doing anything other than paying attention to you, your requests are probably doomed. This isn't because he doesn't care. His brain is unfocused and it's on something else. How often are we excited to share something with a partner, ask for something, and you get disappointed by his lack of interest, his attention, or just being stonewalled? It may be just poor timing, but attitude is critically important. So try to be positive, even if you're annoyed or unhappy with his responsiveness. And believe me, I know this is very tough. Again, just ask my husband. Poor Rob, he got to be the scapegoat of this. Anyway, men are not motivated by constructive criticism, and criticism actually can compel a man to keep his distance. They really care about what you need. But timing and attitude is everything. So try to keep the criticisms to yourself unless you want to drive them away. A more direct approach, graciously asked at the right time with the right attitude and accurate assumptions, will lead to a much more satisfying result. Appreciation. Notice the little things he does for you. If you don't notice and appreciate even the little things he does, it discourages him from doing anything else. As we advise our readers in He Loves Me when they're dating, thank your partner for reaching out. Thank him for making the reservations. Thank you for choosing a restaurant. Thank you for treating you to a very nice dinner. If he buys you a present and you don't like it, say you like it anyway, or it might be the last present that you ever get from him. And then you're just going to get some kind of a gift card from Saks or some other place. Husbands and partners appreciate positive reinforcement. All of this will have a profound effect on your relationship. Just to repeat, men truly want to please and satisfy you. Help him and let him win, as we say in He Loves Me. Look for the positive. So these are just a few of the pointers from the book that can apply to all of us. It's a quick, fun read. Anybody here besides Hetty and Rob read it? I don't want to put you on the spot. Okay, so a few people did. So you're going to know it's a quick, fun read and has lots of cartoons, and it's meant to be humorous, but it's also meant to have some serious pearls of wisdom in it. But the goal of the whole book really is to make we as women feel more confident and comfortable as we go through the dating maze, or even as us as married individuals or friends of people that are single, helping us be the best that we can in our relationship. So that is it. And there were a few people that asked that had a couple of questions, that said they wanted to ask a couple of questions. So, Jody.
This isn't really about the book, but more about your actual matchmaking. I was just wondering, in these polarized times that politics are so, divisive, I wonder if the issue of politics ever comes up and when you're trying to fix people up.
That's a great question. So the answer to that question, did you hear? It's about, does politics come up in matchmaking? So the answer to that question is yes, 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 and yes. It happens to be, and we've been doing this for 9 years. So I guess in the last 4 or 5 years particularly, when things have been so completely polarized and people can't even say a civil word to somebody that's of the opposite party, it's become almost the number one item. I mean, people still say they want somebody with a similar educational background, they want somebody with drive, they want somebody with good family values, they want somebody that's the same religion, but this is a deal breaker. I can tell you that I go out of my way when I do my intakes, when I talk to people, to talk about what view you have, because people see it as a reflection of values. And it's not even, okay, am I a Democrat? Am I a Republican? Am I a AOC? And I don't want this to be political, but I'm just commentary right now. But am I part of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party? Am I part of the more conservative part of the Republican Party? So it's not just like a two-party kind of thing. It's really, it's almost like coming to battle, and it's something that we really, really try to avoid. And it's not easy to tell your clients, try to be respectful of another person's point of view, because so many people are passionate about this one topic. Any other questions? Jeff? That's a great question. Did you hear that? That was about the apps. If any of you have kids, including mine, they're all very often on Hinge. Even when they're looking for Jewish partners, Hinge is very big, and they look in the Jewish section. So it's pretty common. And what I say, and what we do say, is that you have to be very, very careful on this. Number one, and by the way, our matchmaking service, none of it is online. It's all, we screen everybody, we vet everybody. So it's many people that have come to us of all ages have already tried the online, and they're not happy with it. They want anonymity, they want safety. But the key things there are that never give somebody your full name or your address. Make sure you meet in a public place. Watch for inappropriate language or comments at the dinner. Make sure you tell a friend where you're going and call them in a few hours. Do never go somewhere without telling anybody. Don't get into somebody else's car. And if you are the slightest bit uncomfortable, go to the restaurant, the coffee place, wherever, and tell somebody. Good question. And, okay.
Hi. I'm just curious in all of your expertise. You have something to say that will make us feel wonderful and happy, and tell us something good about your experiences, and perhaps something negative that's also equally as funny or original.
Okay, so I'm going to end on the positive. I'm going to start on one that was pretty funny. We had oh, you didn't hear the question. The question.
No, I said no name.
No, of course not. Of course, we're anonymous. Absolutely. That's absolutely. Although in this one case, she went public with it, so I could. But the one story that was a little bit, it was crazy. We set up somebody, she lives in Boston, we set her up with another man. He was not a client, he was what we call a resource, but we had vetted him, and knew who he was, and he had a good background. And we said afterwards, well, how was the date with Jane? Jane? I didn't meet Jane, I met Betsy. Like, what are you talking about? She substituted her friend. Like, are you kidding me that somebody would do that? That was without question. That was the craziest, most bizarre of all. That like should be in the book of records of matchmakers.
Did it work out?
No, it did not work out, and we really wanted to fire the client because it was not a good thing. The two things I'm going to tell you, I'm going to end with two really good stories because I feel like they're very motivational and they're exciting and it's something that people always want to know, does it really work? So I'm going to tell you two stories of people that are of different ages. I'm going to start with our client, and I'm going to say her name because she went public with it. Her name was Carol. Carol lived in Boca. She was an extremely, extremely wealthy woman. She was married to a gentleman who was owned one of the major basketball teams, super legendary, larger-than-life character, and she really loved him. She had a child with him, and he had he was considerably older than she was. And she was widowed for 10 years, and she came to us through a friend, through a referral. And in the beginning, everybody she was trying to compare to Alan, which is, as you can imagine, nobody's going to live up with a larger-than-life person. It's just not going to happen. And you probably also notice that when somebody passes away, they become even larger in life than they were when they were in real life. So what ended up happening through Nancy's coaching and through our involvement, she slowly moved away from comparing, and she found a gentleman who was also our client, who had been very unhappily divorced from somebody for years back. His name was Blake. And they got married. And they've been married now for many years and so happy. And she attributes it to the fact that she was able to get over having this picture in her mind of her former deceased husband. The second one is something that can apply to all of us because we have kids, or our kids have friends. So we had a client, this one I'm not going to say the name. His name is John. He lives in Houston. I'm not quite sure how he got to us, to be honest, maybe through Google search, looking for Jewish matchmakers, but he did. And a lovely young man, had a master's degree, very successful, had never had a date in his life. He was very socially awkward. Lovely guy, and by the way, we set him up, he was a Republican, and we set him up with several Democrats, and it didn't really work out. That was an issue with him. But in the end, what happened was, Nancy had a weekly coaching session with him, where she would give him books to read, and they would discuss the books. And then at another time, the feedback about him, because we always do feedback, the feedback about this guy was that he would only talk about work. He couldn't talk about anything like small talk that people like to talk about. So we actually sent him to a mall, and he went into a shoe store. And we said the assignment was that he was supposed to talk to somebody in the shoe store, somebody that worked in the shoe store, and get a little small talk going with the person in the small. Came back, he was so excited. Anyway, now, this all happened during COVID. So fast forward, we did introduce him to somebody that lives in Miami. He's in Houston. She is willing to move, and they got engaged right before Thanksgiving. And she had never been married before. She had been traumatized. She was an example of somebody that was looking for the tall, dark, and handsome. And it wasn't that he wasn't, but he's pure goodness. So when things like that happen, it really feels like a mitzvah, and that we have the privilege of doing God's work. So thank you.
And this is her book. If you don't buy it today, you don't have to buy it today. Buy it on Amazon. It's really a nice, light read out at the pool with a glass or bottle of rosé.